Cole coming at you. Just thought I'd do a quick, hopefully for me, kind of episode. Just some recommendations for some stuff to read this Halloween season. I mean, by the time you see this, Halloween might be over, but it sort of goes on. Obviously, in early November. In any case, spooky stuff doesn't really take a holiday. All year long you can obviously read and watch scary stuff. But because of the day, I just thought I'd throw out a few things that I'd like to recommend. We'll start obviously on the comic side of things. Let's see here. Last year at this time, my episode Spooky Damage, I did a full episode about this series called I Love Halloween. A really cool, brilliant series by Keith Giffen. In manga style, just about a group of crazy trick-or-treaters in a very crazy world. Very twisted and sick humor, but definitely captures the spirit, I think, of Halloween in a lot of fun ways. It's not for everybody. Anyway, see my episode on that. Really fun reading. What else we got? I don't really have a lot, obviously. A few sort of interesting things. Pretty much any Hellboy, I just did an episode on Hellboy, is good for Halloween. I'm going to go with Volume 3, The Chained Coffin and Others, because I really enjoy the stories in this, particularly the titular Chained Coffin. Just a fun little story about Hellboy trying to save this baby and having to wind up to having to bury the corpse of somebody in accordance for a deal. It's a very fun story, and actually, although it does seem like one of the little standalone stories, it does have repercussions that are carried throughout and pick up in the main sort of Hellboy storylines. This also has a story called A Christmas Underground, which I just wrote a story that's very similar in a sort of theme to it, called The Dark Staircase, and I have to admit that I took a little bit of inspiration for this. But anyway, it's interesting because, it was a Christmas story, but still very spooky. Okay, so any Hellboy's good. This is my recommendation, though, obviously. Let's see. Speaking of Christmas, here, I'll just go off reading. The Nightmare Before Christmas. I am not a big Tim Burton fan. Maybe that surprises you. Maybe you think that I really like Tim Burton. I do and I don't. I think he's crazily overrated, and I won't get into it here and now because we want to keep moving, but mostly I just think that he hasn't had an original idea in years and just uses the same music by Danny Elfman and the same actors, Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter, over and over again, and usually he just takes things. I haven't even seen the new Alice in Wonderland, and maybe it's really good, and I will give it a chance, but I'm really not interested in seeing him butchering yet another classic. Although I don't have it here, one thing that I do think was the perfect Tim Burton movie and also fits this holiday season, you should definitely see, and it works very well in November too, is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I think that is just the culmination of all things Burton and Depp and Elfman and everything going right. You got the skeleton trees, you got the spooky story, turned somewhat into a mystery, you have Elfman's music with the la 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 children. It really works. But anyway, I'm talking about Nightmare Before Christmas, just a brilliant piece of animation that they sort of tried to recapture years later with The Corpse Bride. Didn't work, but this is a great movie for pretty much kids of all ages. I mean, there's bits that'll scare you a little bit, but I think that's good for kids. It was good for me. Moving on the comic side of things also. Well, first of all, Clive Barker, of course, is considered by many to be quite the master of horror, and we're all very familiar with lots of his work. This was a book he wrote in the 90s called The Thief of Always, which was sort of his first foray into trying to do a story that even kids could read. So it's aimed at kids, although anybody can enjoy it. Very interesting, cool story. It's kind of funny. This edition came out in 1997, and I think it says somewhere on here that it's soon to be a major motion picture. Okay, maybe it's not on my copy, but I know there were copies that said that, but I guess that's been in development hell. I think it would make a good movie. And it's about this bored kid, he's about 10 or 11, going to a place called Holiday House, where he gets to experience all the holidays of the year in quick succession, whatever he wants, and sort of where all your dreams come true for kids. And I won't give anything else away, but I will say that it was made into a comic, and it exists in graphic novel form, but before it became one graphic novel, it was released in 3 smaller volumes, of which I have the first and third, and it's killing me that I don't have the second. The art is not by Barker, although I'm sure it's somewhat inspired by him. Who is the art by? I'm sorry. I should have looked into this beforehand. I actually know, and I just can't remember. Adapted by Chris Oprisco, that's for the story, and illustrated by Gabriel Hernandez, working at Sulaco Studios. I'll try to give you a look at what the art looks like. That's Rictus, the mysterious agent or whatever he is that first invites Harvey to the place. He's at the house enjoying all sorts of food. I don't know how well you can see that. Anyway, that's volume 1. We'll jump to volume 3. And it's killing me that I don't have that, but there's some really great... It's one of those really great stories, and when I was, again, bringing my own story, when I was trying to write The Dark Staircase, I was really influenced by something like this, or Neil Gaiman's Coraline. You know, the idea, or something like Return to Oz, something that's for kids but still has a very dark edge to it. Can't go wrong with Thief of Always, whether you can find this in graphic novel form or the book. Great read, pretty quick, you know, because it's basically for kids, but not... Anyway, what else we got here? Can't go wrong with Dracula, of course, the original, Bram Stoker's Gothic masterpiece, 1892. Pretty much every vampire story after this owes something to this. Interesting the way it's written as a series of letters, mostly from Jonathan Harker, but other people's too. You have some stuff from Mina's journal and things like that, the way it's put together. In hindsight, it's sort of an interesting way of him doing it. I don't know if it was to make it seem more believable or what, I don't know. This isn't the very first vampire story. Of course, there were all sorts of legends and folklore before that, and also In a Glass Darkly. I can't remember the author's name, but I've been looking for a collection of short stories that predates this by about 10 or 20 years. Has the story Carmilla, about a female vampire, and really started the whole lesbian vampire genre. I don't think he meant anything of it at the time, but it's sort of become sort of a big deal. Anyway, I feel like I should try to tell you something about vampires and stuff like that. I didn't bring my 30 Days of Night. The 30 Days of Night, that's another great comic. Just because, you know, in the last few years, vampires have become so en vogue, and I don't know, I'm not too happy with their a lot of their popular depictions in the media now. I don't like how humanized they are and things like that. I mean, it's okay. It's not like it's going against anything. It's all imaginary. It's all made up, and people are entitled to whatever they want. But I don't particularly care for it. I prefer vampires as monsters, as irredeemable, etc., etc. Okay, been stuck on that for a while, so moving on. This is something that I got that I can't really recommend too much. This is a Jules Verne novella called The Castle in Transylvania. I'm sure you're familiar with Jules Verne, great French writer from the 19th century, and very ahead of his time, wrote about all sorts of things before the technology existed, such as like traveling to space, submarines, things like that. It's kind of eerie when you look at a lot of his works. Of course, great works like The Time Machine. Of course, I'm going to go blank now, but I'm Journey to the Center of the Earth, and so many. He's sort of seen as the father of modern science fiction. He started it all. So this is a story that I think had been in limbo, didn't have an English translation for many years. And anyway, it says on this version, Back from the Dead, the original zombie story. Okay, that's just false advertising completely. But it is sort of an interesting story. I was ultimately disappointed in it, but if you're looking for something new, give it a shot, because Jules Verne is a very good writer. This is translated very well. I've only read his English translations, haven't read anything in the original French. I think I would have had a lot of trouble reading this in the original French, or probably a lot of Jules Verne, because it's pretty complicated stuff. Not as satisfying, not what I was looking for, but I can't say it's bad. Okay, what else? On the Batman side of things, of course, there is The Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Of course, if you're familiar with this, it doesn't really have much to do with Halloween. That's simply the title. It's about Batman in his early days, probably somewhere in year 2 before Dick Grayson comes into it. And they built on this in the second Batman, the second Chris Nolan Batman film, The Dark Knight, the idea that Batman, the first thing he's really going to try to do is try to clean up the corruption in Gotham, which really starts with the crime families there, the gangsters. But this book also deals with the some of the first early appearances of some of Batman's more celebrated rogues gallery. If you're familiar with Jeff Loeb, you know he likes to really use everybody as much as he can and tie it all together. It has a sequel called Dark Victory, which I also have, which is somewhat satisfying too, but it's kind of just sort of a rip-off of this original idea. What else is going on here is we have the origin of Two-Face, the story of Harvey Dent. Tim Sale's art is really great. It has this really neat noir feel to it. Again, how much does this have to do with Halloween? Well, not a lot, but still, if you haven't read this, definitely do so if you care about Batman at all, because it's awesome. I forget where I put it because I was reading it the other day, but of course, Arkham Asylum, the brilliant House on a Serious Earth, the brilliant graphic novel from Grant Morrison. It, for a long, long time, was the best-selling graphic novel of all time. Of course, very great, interesting, just standalone, sort of outside continuity. You can fit anywhere. Story about Batman going into Arkham Asylum to save hostages. Great painting by Dave McKean. Just an amazing tour de force. It's very cerebral. It takes a look at all the psychological aspects of Batman and some of his villains, and some of them get a sort of a different look. It's definitely scary and creepy and atmospheric and great. The Walking Dead. This is the very first arc, which is the only one I own, but I have read a little bit. This first arc's not that great. Robert Kirkman's story about a zombie apocalypse and survivors living in the world. I can only say it does get better. If you own this or if you've read this and you're unimpressed, I understand. I thought the writing sort of hackneyed in this. A lot of the dialogue just sort of seems amateurish, and I don't know. In some ways, it's neat that a guy just wakes up from a coma and gets right into it. In another way, it almost seems lazy that we're skipping out on how it happened and stuff. But I guess Robert Kirkman's idea is stuff will be revealed slowly, blah, blah, blah. The characters, at least in the first arc, do not seem very interesting. I really didn't care about any of them. The art I could take or leave. But again, I like zombies. You know, if you stick with it and you're patient, later arcs get more interesting. I'm sure there's some people out there that think this is absolutely brilliant. The TV show starts today. I'm going to check that out because I'm one of those people that has almost no faith in the medium of television. I don't watch very much TV at all. I don't really believe in television shows as a great way of telling stories. I just don't. But I actually do believe that The Walking Dead could be even better as a show than a comic, which would be really rare, at least to me. But anyway. So then I was also thinking about Halloween specials. Because, you know, I can tell you a bunch of movies, obviously. There's so many movies. I just wanted to get your Nightmare Before Christmas out there. But Halloween specials, although one of my favorites, of course, comes from one of my favorite shows, Jonan Vasquez's Invader Zim. This has the Halloween episode, the Halloween Spooktacular or Spooky Doom or whatever it's called like that. Really fun, just obviously a Zim take on Halloween and all its ludicrousness and wackiness and stuff. I love it. This would be in Volume 2, Progressive Stupidity. So I don't know. Maybe I recommend just getting the whole box set, all 3 volumes. But anyway, that's where it is, Volume 2. Also, one of the greatest Halloween specials of all time is definitely Charlie Brown's Halloween. I own it in Peanuts, the 60s collection. Charlie Brown, yeah, it's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, 1966. Just amazing. I cannot recommend it enough. It's on TV all the time. I'm sure you'll have a chance to watch it. It's great to watch with TV. Years and years ago, I had a tape from, I think, 1988 that had this on it, and also Garfield's Halloween, which is another one of the greatest ones out there, back-to-back, with great 80s commercials. I remember where I live in Nova Scotia, years ago, it stopped sometime around 91, but when I was a little kid, we used to get a station out of Bangor that carried a lot of stuff, and great stuff on it. Great commercials that seemed really interesting to me at the time and different because it was sort of, it's not that we didn't get American commercials. Of course, we got American shows, American commercials, but still some interesting things. Like I remember there's a commercial for Big Boy, which I didn't know what the hell that was, with like a song called America Loves Its Big Boy. Anyway, it just kills me that I have no idea where the tape is, missing for years, but still, next best thing is owning this wonderful, wonderful music, the art, just the way the sky looks. It's so atmospheric. Vince Guaraldi is a genius as far as music goes. That whole bit with Snoopy being shot down behind enemy lines as the World One flying ace going through the French countryside and the flute music. A brilliant, brilliant atmospheric. You know, you should really take it seriously because it's actually really cool. So I'm sure you're familiar with it. I cannot recommend that one enough. That's going to pretty much do it, except I will say that I picked this up the other day. This is the Superman Batman comic, which I don't follow. This is just sort of a standalone story with Supergirl, who I have such a huge crush on, teaming up with the current Robin, Batman's son Damian, Little Snot, to solve some murders. She gets upset about some murders in Metropolis, so she goes to Gotham, hoping to get Batman's help because she needs a detective, and she winds up teaming up with Robin, even though she doesn't want to, obviously. And they're a fun little team. It's just a standalone short story. I mean, it's all done in this episode. It's all wrapped up. He, he's just he's very curt and rude to her. Just calls her alien and stuff like that. It's fun. It's satisfying. Glad I picked it up. It's kind of predictable who the villain turns out to be in this being Halloween, but it's fun. I'm out of time. I rambled as usual, but I hope it was useful. I hope you guys have a great Halloween. Happy Halloween. Happy Devil's Night if you live in the East or Michigan or Quebec or something like that. Peace out. Keep your sticks on the ice. Until next time. Bye-bye.